Hello everyone, welcome to this members webinar of ESS BIZTOOLS. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. I hope you're having a good day and I look forward to taking you through some of these strategies to assist you in this very difficult time with your clients. And today's theme is businesses will be operating under additional stress. Are your services geared to adding value to your clients? Let's start with a checklist, first of all, of COVID-19 coronavirus items. If you've still got clients who haven't registered for JobKeeper, that they wish to be able to access reimbursement of wages paid in April, they need to have registered with the Australian Taxation Office by 31 May. Reminder that if your clients have got apprentices or trainees, they can register for a subsidy registration, which is for a period of 9 months, whereby they will receive up to 50% of the apprentices or trainees' wages reimbursed for a 9-month period, up to a maximum amount of $21,000. The JobKeeper status is very important if any of your clients are wishing to take advantage of the Commercial Tenancy Code of Conduct, which enables a business owner to be able to negotiate relative to a tenancy variation or extension. But they must have qualified for the JobKeeper status, even if they do not intend to register for the $1,500 per fortnight to be payable to them. The taxation officers changed the date for the lodgement of the documentation required for the ongoing JobKeeper payments. It's now to be lodged by the 14th day of the month. And the coronavirus SME guarantee loan facilities closed at the 30th of September. Please remember this, because when this money was made available by the Reserve Bank, they indicated to the banks that any money that was not spent by the 30th of September 2020 is to be returned to the Reserve Bank. You can register a client later in this 6-month period for JobKeeper if they have suffered a 30% reduction in turnover in a particular month. So please bear that in mind when you're examining the financial accounts of your clients. Let's now have a look at the coronavirus SME guarantee loan. First of all, the Reserve Bank specified that banks must continue to utilize their normal lending criteria when reviewing a loan application. I think you're going to need a business plan, or at the very least a dot point business plan, to be able to support the loan application, and a budget for 3 years, bearing in mind that the loan is for a maximum of 3 years. So the bank will want to know how you are going to operate in that 3 years, or your client's going to operate, and in particular, how your client's going to be able to repay this loan. And I think the bank will also require a cash flow forecast for the 3-year period. And they'll require the financial accounts and taxation returns for 2018-19 and interim financial accounts, 31st of March, perhaps even the 30th of April. Now, this is work that you should be able to attend to, but please bear in mind that This special loan facility expires at the 30th of September. So the quicker you start working with your clients to get these applications finalised, the better. Let's look at the additional stress levels for businesses, because I think you need to be factoring all of this into account. I think it's an unreal situation at present in that there's no debt recovery basically operating because the government has made some short-term temporary amendments to the Corporations Act and other pieces of legislation that basically require 6 months notice to be given of any debt recovery action. But what's that going to mean at the end of September? Some of your clients could be operating in a false situation at present and be in for a real shock when 30th of September comes round. The other big change is going to be is from 1 October, there is no JobKeeper or boosting cash flow for businesses because both of those programs have ceased. And some businesses around Australia are really relying, in fact, you could say thousands of businesses are relying on these government grants and initiatives being available. What's going to happen when they're not available? The Australian Small Business Association is adding to the stress in some respects by forecasting that 200,000 businesses could fail, not reopen in October, November, or start to reopen and find the going too difficult. And there's great uncertainty in the tourism business. This is because our international borders are shut. Some of the state borders are already shut around Australia, Queensland, Northern Territory, Western Australia, South Australia, and I think Tasmania. So the tourism businesses are really suffering. And COVID-19 trading restrictions are still in place for many businesses, hotels, cafes, restaurants, gyms, a whole range of personal type services. How much longer is that going to continue? What effect is it having on your clients and their stress levels? The other thing to bear in mind is banks have announced substantial provisions for doubtful debts in their interim results that were being announced over the last couple of weeks. This is indicative that the banks are anticipating some major problems once normal business operations resume from 1 October. I don't think you should be expecting banks to be very receptive to a small business or medium-sized enterprise entity submitting a loan application after 1 October 2020. Because I suspect banks are going to say, we have got enough exposure now to that category of SMEs. My suggestion is that you should be preparing your clients for this eventuality now, sitting down and having a conversation with your client to determine what their strategies are, what their vision is for the next couple of years, preferably 3 years. And then formulating all of that into a budget and a cash flow forecast to highlight what the cash flow problem areas might be. And then to give consideration to submitting a loan application up to for 3 years of up to $250,000 under the coronavirus SME guarantee loans that have been 50% guaranteed by the Australian government. Now, in some cases, the amount of loan funds that your client might be requiring might exceed $250,000. And if so, you could possibly apply for the coronavirus SME guarantee loan, but then have to look at alternative methods of raising funds. And we'll talk more about that later. But the key message that I want to convey to you today is I think the time for planning is now, not in October. going to be very difficult. Coronavirus SME guarantee loans will be finished by then. And the other big change I think we're going to see is very little funding available for from government grants after 1 October. The governments have released a lot of money over the last 8 weeks. In some instances, I suspect, especially out of the state and territory governments, it's been 3 to 4 years of their normal grant monies for SMEs. It's all gone. And I suspect that governments are not going to be very keen on making more money available. In some respects, they might have to for particular problem areas, which could be tourism. But for a lot of businesses, I don't think you're going to be able to avail yourself of a government grant after 1 October. And the Australian Government Small Business Ombudsman, Kate Carnell, has published an article in the Financial Review last week, which indicated that she thinks SMEs are going to have significant difficulties until at least 31 December 2021. She was asking the banks to go easy on businesses, on SME businesses, because her team is forecasting there's going to be ongoing problems. And quite frankly, I agree with her. And you might too. So what are you going to do with your clients? And when you put all this together, you're building up a fair bit of stress, aren't you? Because there's some very difficult conditions in front of us all. There's some significant roadblocks. And we probably cannot pretend that we've got all the answers on all this. I think it's going to be difficult. So let's look at how you might be able to gear your services to add value to your clients. What are you doing? I'm convinced that most SME clients are going to require a broader range of services than just taxation to help them survive. And in fact, you've already started, or most of you have, with most of your clients in offering a broader range of services over the last 8 weeks. The JobKeeper program, advice on applying for various government grants, helping for applications for the coronavirus SME guarantee loan, were all tasks that for many of you will probably be beyond what you normally do for your clients built around taxation. So I want to now give you an overview of the services that I think you should be providing now to offer this broader range of services. And it all starts with having a conversation with your client, individual conversations. So pick out your clients and start working with your A-class clients first and work your way through them and have these conversations. What are their business aspirations? What are they trying to achieve? What is their vision? What would they like their business to look like in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years' time? And the first objective, of course, has got to be that they're going to survive, but what do they want to look like? And I've tried to start this at the basic level. I think it's very important that accountants are making sure that financial accounts are prepared for individual business units, not all lumped together into one profit and loss account, because it's meaningful information, or it's not meaningful information if it's prepared in that way. It's meaningless information for your clients. They need to be able to get a P&L on the individual components, whether it's a transport operation, whether it's a retail store, whether it's the warehouse, whether it's the property that the business is being operated within. I think it all should be in separate profit and loss accounts so that there can be responsibility to whoever's in charge of that individual operation Take some time to look at the key performance indicators. Are they meaningful? Do they convey anything? Are they understood? And I would suggest that one of the roles you could offer to perform is to coach the leadership team in how to interpret the financial accounts and the key performance indicators. And let the leadership team have some ownership of the KPIs. What do they want to know? After all, this information's been prepared to assist them to run their businesses. Very important that three-way financial forecasts are prepared. Budgets, cash flow forecasts, and predicted balance sheets. So you could be offering a predictive accounting service, looking at the future, trying to say, what's your plan, what's your vision, what are you wanting to do? And we will now put that into a series of documents which are all interlocked. Budgets, cash flow forecasts, and projected balance sheets. Predictive accounting service is something you should be supplying, I think. Business planning. Business plans are extremely important and should be a high priority in the tasks that you're going to prepare. And indeed, if your client's interested in a coronavirus SME guarantee loan, they're going to need a business plan, or at the very least, perhaps a dot point business plan, but preferably a fully blown business plan. You could perform project management services, and I'm going to refer to some of those shortly, but also perform the role of company secretary if your client is operating through a company. This does not normally get done well when clients look after that sort of part of the business affairs themselves. And I think one of the very important items that hopefully we've now built up to by having the conversation, by analysing how financial accounts are prepared and making sure they're prepared within individual business units, looking at the key performance indicators, making sure the leadership team and anyone else that's involved in the operation of those business units has been mentored and understands how to read the profit and loss account, how to read and understand the key performance indicators, and you have some ownership from those leadership people as to the components within key performance indicators. It's then desirable to be organising the monthly business review meeting. And my suggestion to you is that you should be putting your name or your firm's name forward to your client, that you will act as the project manager for the business review meeting. So you'll prepare the agenda, you'll make sure reports left over from the previous month are there. Make sure there's been an action plan prepared from the previous meeting. Make sure everyone's turning up with their brain in gear. They're ready to think and contribute because they've received the reports. And they know that this is going to be a well-organised event. I think that's your role, because that's what happens in a lot of public companies. It's the chief financial officer, company secretary, who organises those events. The business review meeting, the whole leadership team there, whereby they look at production, sales, marketing, sourcing of products, the financial reports in one meeting. No taxation. My suggestion would be you can have taxation discussed once a year in one of the meetings, but primarily this is about business. And this is really bringing to the fore you performing a chief financial officer service. And within ESS BIZTOOLS, as a subscriber, you have access to a vast range of material which will assist you to deliver value-adding services for your clients. Mentoring of the client's team on the financial matters that affect their performance. I talk to a lot of SMEs. A lot of them tell me they don't understand the information they receive from their accountants. And that's very sad. Costs a lot of money to get that information. I suggest that you should be sitting down and mentoring your clients to understand what it means. And in some instances, you might have to try to simplify the reports or change some of the key performance indicators. The leadership team needs to understand what their role is when it comes to planning and budgets and setting of strategies for the business. Strategy setting is a very important function of the leadership team. But I think you should be having a conversation with your client to make you part of that leadership team. You're the financial person, which is very important if you're a larger organization. It is just as important. And in fact, some people argue it is more important in a smaller business, because the small business hasn't got a range of in-house experts that understand financial matters. Many instances, there's no one. So the business needs to be able to develop strategies. And that's the leadership team, sitting down and discussing them, probably raising some what if type questions. What if we did this? What if we did that? And a lot of those questions, if you're there as the project manager, I think they're going to be addressed to you, because they'll be looking for the financial angle. What's it going to cost us to do it this way? Can we change that? Are there any grants for this? Are all questions that are basically going to be directed to you, because you're performing a chief financial officer or a project manager role. And it's all very well to develop strategies. In fact, some people are very good at developing strategies, but they rarely implement, because the implementation's the hard part. You can sit down and have meetings and cups of tea and coffee and scones and jam and cream, if you like, while you discuss the identification of strategies and write material as to what the strategy is about. But the rubber hits the road when it comes to implementing those strategies. Making those things work can be very difficult. And many of your clients, I suspect, are going to need your input, because in public companies, and I was there once as a chief financial officer, company secretary of a listed public company, I was involved in all this quite heavily, you could say up to my neck, because the financial department basically had an input into virtually every decision that was being made. And therefore, the best way to have that input, I found, was to be there as the strategies were being thought about and discussed. Could we do it this way? Could we change this? Is there a grant for this? What's going to happen in this overseas country? What's happening to their currency? Customers are very important. And whilst in the strategies, customers would have been considered, I've listed it here as a separate item to make sure that you're very conscious of talking to your clients about some of the roles you could do relative to setting strategies for their customers. Another very important area, and you've got material on this within ESS BIZTOOLS, is research and development. Some of your team, in fact, many of them might still be working from home. Some business people are also working from home, and some of them may have filled those hours up with thinking about new projects that they might be able to implement. So it's an obvious time to start just communicating with clients. Have you been doing any research and development? We can advise you on what you should be doing so that you are able to protect the intellectual property that they're developing, but also claim some income tax benefits through the research and development rebate. Corporate governance is an area that gets forgotten, and it's really no one's responsibility. But if you're the project manager, chief financial officer, and perhaps company secretary, all thrown in together, corporate governance is definitely your concern. It's a way of setting up parameters as to how discussions and decisions are going to be made in a business. Obviously, a lot of it's concerned with how board of directors operate. But board of directors are just at the pinnacle. There's a whole range of other structure, leadership teams and various group teams. You can have a big input into helping to define how corporate governance is going to operate within your client's business. And one of the big questions many of you are going to be asking is, where's the money going to come from? Where are the funds to do what we have budgeted we want to do? It's all very well to put a line into a cash flow forecast and say, you know, new funds, $1 million, but where are those new funds coming from? I think it's part of your role to be promoting this discussion with your clients, to make them start thinking about it. Now, the leadership team will need your guidance as to how they could raise some capital. You know, we're looking at fundraising. I've already told you, I think it's going to be very difficult to borrow money from banks after 30 September. I think it's going to be very difficult to get most of the government grants, except the accelerating commercialisation, export market development grant, and a few others like that. They'll continue to be funded, but a lot of the others are going to be reduced. And I think the state and territory government grants will also reduce. So this is a good opportunity now. You've identified in your cash flow forecast there's a cash flow shortage of $1 million. And you're proactively helping your clients. We could say to them, we could raise that capital under Section 708 of the Corporations Act. We can raise a maximum of $2 million in 12 months from 20 investors. How do you react to that suggestion? You can ask your client. Alternatively, the company could raise capital of up to $5 million from literally a few thousand investors if need be, under crowdsourced funding equity raising. The maximum retail investor can invest $10,000 into that type of company. And then we got the early stage innovation company where there's no upper limit as to how much money the company can raise, but the company has to fit some fairly narrow definitions based on turnover and expenses and the type of technology that's been developed. But why wouldn't you have a conversation with your client about all this? I'm going to ask you now if we've got any questions. And if you have, can you send them through? Now, I can't see any questions. I hope that means that I've answered all of your questions. But if you're watching this at a time more suitable to you, whether it's the wee hours late at night or on a Sunday morning, and you have questions, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and indicate that you heard the comment made on a webinar and you have some questions. I look forward to hearing from you if you do have some. Our next members webinar, we're presenting these every couple of weeks to keep you informed, to promote discussion, and to help you deliver value-adding services to your clients. And the title is Using ESS BizTools to Offer Chief Financial Officer Services to your clients, a follow-on from what we're talking about today. And that webinar is going to be presented on Tuesday, the 9th of June at 12 noon AEST. And to register, please go on to www.essbiztools.com.au/webinars. And I look forward to talking to you then. So thank you for your support of ESS BizTools and ESS BizGrants. We do appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.